warm welcome to our Minister, Ebba Busch. Give her a warm hand.
Thank you so much, and happy to be here, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends, and what was it you said? Heat pump lovers.
Yes.
Yes, I'm happy to be joining in with the heat pump lovers today. I would say that it's an honor to be able, for me to be able to be here today together with all of you, and I'm particularly glad to have the opportunity to talk about this important topic, the decarbonization of the heating sector and what Sweden has to offer. Because fossil-free heating is a Swedish climate and industry success story, and I'm happy to be able to share some of our valuable lessons with some of you today, and I believe that there are more countries that could achieve similar results. Heating forms the EU's biggest energy sector, representing almost half of our energy consumption. We cannot allow such a critical infrastructure to be subject to major vulnerabilities. And as I talk to some of the distinguished guests that are at my table here, I think we are a lot of energy nerds that have been for quite a few years wanting energy to really be top of the political agenda. And now we are seeing that it's really shaping every single discussion in Europe at the moment, and rightly so. And some of the reasons for it is quite grave and very serious. We also saw how the war in Ukraine led to gas shortage and supply disruptions that sent shockwaves through all energy markets. As things stand, many European households are still dependent on Russian heating. It has also contributed to climate change. As we all know, gas and other fossil fuels remain big players even in the presence of cost-efficient alternatives, and that needs to change. With the right incentives, things can change for the better. In Sweden, the transition really started already in the 1970s, following then the oil crisis. At the time, security of energy supply was a main driver, and the heating sector was the most cost-efficient to decarbonize. Today, we have added climate change and industrial competitiveness to the list of drivers for the energy transition. And I think it's interesting to look at the similarities between today's and previous energy transitions and draw lessons from that. In the 70s, Sweden had a dangerous dependence on oil and faced a rapidly increasing demand for electricity. The response then for Sweden's behalf was the construction of 12 nuclear reactors and a switch from oil in the heating sector to fossil-free electric heating and biomass-based district heating. Those were highly strategic choices, and they were basically made, and we went from sort of really growing the seed and then baking the bread, from ax till limpa, as you say in Swedish. You'll have to ask for a better translation among the guests around your table, but just within 10 to 15 years, basically. And today we have district heating in 500 communities, supplying renewable heat to 90% of all apartment buildings, 90%. The heat pump sector started its rapid and successful expansion already in the mid-90s and has taken a major market share in single-family houses and other type of buildings. As a result, we have several high competitive and innovative Swedish industries, and I'm happy to have some of them here today. This transition was achieved with only a technology-neutral carbon tax, because we don't know what the energy or the technology of tomorrow will be, because it lies in the concept of new technology for tomorrow. So I think this was also a crucial part, that it was technology neutral. Today, 122 euro per ton is the carbon tax. in combination with sufficient fossil-free electricity production that ensured a low electricity price. These conditions led to a market-driven development of district heating and pumps without any further technology-specific regulations. And I think that's a very interesting combination as a policymaker. Following last year's turmoil on the electricity market, the government decided to phase out the last remaining inefficient heating with the direct use of electricity. So we are now introducing an investment aid of over 1 billion Swedish kronor for energy efficiency and a switch to more efficient heating systems in small houses. As the carbon tax made fossil fuels expensive, the market responded with innovation and continuously improved solutions, generating both competitiveness and low-cost solutions. Today, the extended fossil-free heating market employs over 50,000 people in Sweden, and given we're a country of 9 million inhabitants, that's quite a lot. While our heating and electricity sectors in Sweden are almost decarbonized, there are still fossil fuels in the industry and transport sectors. Both sectors target their fossil fuel dependency mainly with electrification. This electrification is a huge business opportunity and has generated an industrial revolution. We're seeing it particularly in the northern part of Sweden at this moment. Industry currently invests massively in new technology, such as fossil-free steel, batteries, and electrofuels. As a result, Sweden's demand for fossil-free electricity is expected to double by 2045. This is the reason I fought so hard to become the energy minister last fall when Sweden had a change in government after the elections, because I really, really like huge challenges. This massive demand will require new investments in both nuclear and renewables, just as it did decades ago in the wake of the oil crisis, when our current nuclear reactors were built and biomass replaced fossil fuels in the heating sector. Energy security is the wager for this generation of Europeans. This issue remains at the core of EU policy in climate change, in security and foreign relations, as well as industrial competitiveness. More than ever before, it is important that the EU acts jointly, decisively, and responsibly. Representing the EU presidency and also having the honor of leading both the TTE Council with the energy ministers, but also the Council on Competitiveness issues, I'm proud to say that we have come a long way towards concluding the many of the important legislative acts in the Fit for 55 and Repower EU proposals, as well as then the gas market package. I'm confident that the Council and the European Parliament will find a balanced compromise on the F-gas regulation. I'm very eager to hear the reports of your discussions here today. But much remains to be done, but we will have taken a big leap forward when we hand over the presidency to Spain in the middle of the summer. And I know from my experiences in meeting my colleagues that conditions and solutions, they differ a lot between regions, in many times also in the same country, and between member states, particularly in the heating sector. Yet all of us remain committed to phasing out fossil fuels at an increasing pace. Sweden has proven that such a transition is possible, and that it's possible to do in quite a high tempo, actually, and that it can be done in a cost-efficient way if market-driven and adapted to local conditions. The solutions will differ between countries, obviously, but one thing stands completely clear. The EU will need all its fossil-free heating and cooling solutions. All sources of good powers are needed. And that's sort of the main goal, the main slogan for the Swedish government now is all good powers unite. Hence, policy should strive for technology neutrality to enable an industry and local actors to benefit from its specific opportunities, be that heat pumps, biomass, waste heat, or district heating. And to then summarize and conclude, the EU needs to get rid of the fossil fuels, most urgently the Russian fossil fuels, but eventually all heating will need to be fossil-free. I see great potential in a revitalized heating sector all across Europe, a mix of biogas, heat pumps, waste heat, and all other alternatives. Perhaps some regions will also see district heating connected to small modular nuclear reactors, if that's welcomed in that region. This transition is necessary not only to isolate Russia and to stop feeding its war economy, because that's really what it comes down to, but also to mitigate climate change. It is equally necessary to secure industrial competitiveness. I think we're really standing at a crossroads where we will see even more polarization within Europe, or really a way of showing unity. And I think one key to making, to dampening that risk for polarization is showing that it is possible to take climate change seriously, and at the same time showing that there will be more jobs created. More dads and moms will have a job to go to, and more and better funding for a joint welfare as well. I note, for example, that 2 very large heat pump factories are currently being built in the very heart of Central Europe, in Poland and Slovakia. This industrial expansion proves that economy, jobs, emission reduction, they all go hand in hand. But equally important is the fact that increased electrification requires sufficient production of fossil-free electricity. A coherent policy where all prices contribute will be necessary to ensure the new fossil-free production capacity goes hand in hand with increasing demand. So, dear friends, once again, thank you all for inviting me, and thank you for contributing to industrial competitiveness and a warm fossil-free future.
Thank you so much. It's great that you emphasize the role of the European Union here, but we also all know how challenging it is. We have also seen all the directives coming out now. I mean, plans, proposals, as you said, in a pace that we've sort of never seen. So, since you are now on the inside in the EU presidency, what would you like to say to us today? What is the most important thing for us to concentrate on in order to contribute to the EU development now?
Well, I say, first of all, I think that this is still, I touched upon that in the beginning of my speech, that we've been working hard with energy issues in general for a very long time. But it's sort of been in the shadow of many other different issues and on the political agenda. And that's a problem with politics, because we sort of seem to be able to keep our focus on very few issues at the same time. And we've taken the fact that from 2 holes in the wall, you will get enough electricity when it is needed, where it's needed, and in the way it's needed, with the right amount and at the right price. We've taken that completely for granted. Being able to switch the lamps on and off, and not having to, what we've done this winter and the winter before that, ask our citizens to save energy, not to consume so much. Especially in Sweden, where we've had a very high production of fossil-free electricity at a very low and competitive cost. And I think we now need to see that there is still a lot of knowledge to be put on the table. So given that I know that there is quite a bit of knowledge in this room, I would like to ask you to share that knowledge with your policymakers and directly with the citizens. This is a time to educate, because knowledge is power, and if we have the right facts on the table, it makes it much easier for policymakers that would like to be re-elected. So just to put that obvious part on the table as well. If we have the same facts, if we have the same sort of image of what reality really is, it makes it much easier to land with better decisions and policy making that lasts long term as well.
And also build confidence that this might take time, but it will take us to a better future.
Exactly.
Sometimes the climate debate is like we are going backwards into something that we don't want. But really be the sort of light there. I think I was thinking of if there is a polarization now going on that actually is making this agenda. I'm sure it is, but I would like your short comment on it. How can we be more communicative instead of more polarized? And I know it's a huge question, but I'm sure you have an example or something from your own experience where we can actually bridge this in a way.
No, definitely, and I think that we're different as human beings, and there are a lot of things that brings us together, that unites us, but we also react differently. Some people have reacted very strongly to seeing the climate threat and really taking it on as a threat, as the challenge as it is, taking it very seriously, and felt that this is a matter of life and death. I'm prepared to change everything. Let's go. And they see sort of hope in that as well. And then we have others that have felt, well, it seems very complicated. Are they really, are they the researcher, are they all really saying the same thing? And also, it seems such a big challenge. Can you even make a difference? And I think that as a policymaker, I see it as a huge responsibility to both tell people what reality is like. This is a big problem, but also giving hope. Because if we only talk about the problems and never show that there is a way out of this, I think that will scare people to the point where you just get paralyzed. And that's why I come back, especially in a European context, saying that there is a way to create more job opportunities, a stronger economic growth. I think we've had part of the Western world has had sometimes a tendency to tell other countries, this really is a matter of life and death. You have to change. But what about our economic growth? What about the welfare journey that you've been able to do in your country? Well, maybe you're not going to be able to do that. Well, technology and actually heat pumps is part of the answer to bridging that gap, I think, and showing that this is serious, but there's also really an actual tangible and realistic way of changing what is the reality of today. And I think that is what can make it possible for Europe to stand joint and united also in this issue, and showing why energy issues and heating is such a strategic issue, moving away from the dangerous dependencies that we have today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that support also for the technology and research that we need from you politicians. The tougher you are, the better we get, you know. Thank you so much, Ebba Busch.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.